Hello and welcome to Enlightened Empaths, your community for the spiritually awakened, where we discuss, explore, and connect with fellow empaths, healers, intuitives, and seekers.
Welcome back to Enlightened Empaths, and today we're really excited to welcome a guest with us today, Karin Connelly. Karin is a lifelong explorer of heart and mind, beginning with her studies in depth psychology, now with over 35 years of clinical practice, as well as her many years of Zen meditation, development as a psychic medium, training in hypnotic regression, and more recently, the art of tarot and dreamwork. She finds that at the center of all these practices is a relaxed and receptive state of mind, allowing for a deeper trust in ourselves and our intuition. It's through direct experience, rather than according to beliefs or systems, that we can realize greater freedom and empowerment in our lives, and a trust in the mystery and inspiration surrounding us. Karin lives in an eco-village in North Carolina with her 3 dogs, Django, Leela, and Pelly or Peely?
Pelly.
Pelly.
Cocapelli.
Cocapelli. I love it. I absolutely love it. So welcome. Thank you for doing this with me today, Karin.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here.
I absolutely love sharing people that I believe in who they are and what they're standing for with our listeners, because I think it's important that we all kind of help each other stand up right now, and we help look out for each other. Could you kind of explain how you got to this place with shifting from clinical into more of an intuitive stance?
Well, the highlight is going to be when I took your psychic development class, you and Samantha.
Oh.
But if I think about it chronologically, when I was little, I was raised Catholic, and I really loved it. I had a real deep love of what the sacredness of it. It's very naive. And I used to go and there was a Carmelite convent near my house that was for cloistered nuns. And I was like in second grade, and I would go and sit in the chapel, and I would light incense. And I don't know where that came from, but like no other little kid would do that. So I feel like there was something of that that just has always been there. And then high school. Do you want me to do it chronologically?
Yeah, sure. Okay. I think it's interesting. Yes.
High school. So this was a time like before Oprah. Nobody was in therapy. Nobody talked about this where I was. I didn't live in New York or LA. And I was in a health class in high school, and the nurse presented Freud's structural and topographical models, which is id, ego, superego, and consciousness, unconscious, preconscious. And I was floored. I couldn't believe that somebody was talking about this. I must have had these reflections all along. And so that really started my love of depth psychology, which would be Freud. And then I really got very immediately into Jung and like people like James Hillman and archetypal psychology, and really seeing the mind, looking at the mind not as like we as egos, but as like a cast of characters passing through. So that was very early on. And then I went to graduate school and have practiced for many years. But I feel like I'm a bit of a snake who's always shedding her skin. So I come to the completion of something, and it hasn't quite, there's more. And so then I discovered Zen Buddhism, and I have a tendency to jump all in. So I was in residency and a lot of long, they call them sessions, week-long, full day meditation retreats. And that was wonderful. And there was still something within me. I would consider it my observing ego. It's a part of me that's always looking at what I'm doing. And it was just kind of like I would often get hooked on that. And so I felt like that had completed. And then there was COVID. And the January after the lockdown, I took the psychic development class given by you and Samantha. The last practice was we were assigned partners and we exchanged photos of loved ones in spirit. And we were just going to do a mediumship reading. You all had taught me about, like when I do a meditation, there was I have an amethyst cave, and it's just beautiful. And, so you go in my imagination, I went there. And my attitude, it's like in Zen, it's the beginner's mind. I just was like, I have no idea that I can do this. So what the heck? I'll just have some fun with it. My partner's grandfather came in, and his name was George. And he came in almost as clearly as somebody walking in this room. He had such personality. I got so much evidence. And I finished the reading and I had to wait for feedback. I emailed the information and I had to wait for feedback. And I knew that it was real. So I would say that was kind of the next step that then went on to my development as a psychic medium. But that was like I didn't know that was real. And then once you see that, you can't ever not see it.
That's an excellent way to describe it. It really is. But from listening, it really, really feels like spirit put out the stepping stones for you, your early development. And it's interesting, the town where I grew up, my mother went to parochial school and we had a summer home. I lived by the coast. And they had a summer home for the Carmelite nuns that would go there. So we used to walk up this trail through the woods, and there was a summer home for the nuns. You don't think about nuns going on vacation, but they do. So same similarity with that awe and reverence for Catholicism when I was younger. And I love Freud and Jungian and all that stuff. But with the archetypes, it really does open you up to waking up for this world, because it's that same part of your brain that's getting triggered, which I love. But then when you just nailed it beautifully, once you have that experience of realizing that there's something more, that there is a way to connect with spirit in a different realm and different dimension, it changes perspective about everything else in your life.
Yeah.
Which is incredible.
Yeah.
And it feels like it was really seamless for you. It doesn't feel so the very traditional psychological studies led into the Zen Buddhism and then into meditation and then into this next step, but it feels very fluid.
Yeah. I think being anyone who's searching, you just keep moving towards that next thing. And there are some years later, when I went back to the chapel, the Carmelite chapel, I was like, oh, this is just like the Zendo at the Zen monastery. It was the stillness. It was you can feel the energy. You can just feel there's just something there. And I was so drawn to it. So that felt very confirming that it's like there's something within us that seeks out something that's really very essential.
So we touched on this very lightly before we started to record. We both have a very strong desire to help people find peace in times where it doesn't feel very peaceful. So how do you feel that your work really leads in that direction with what you want to do to work with folks?
Going back to this sort of awakening of mediumship in the spirit realm, where that first reading came so easily, the rest didn't. There was then it's just a process of facing how our own minds get in the way of being connected to something that if we could trust it and just allow it, the people, and you included, you and Samantha would say, just, get out of the way or let the ego step out and just sort of receive it. But it's how do you do that? And I think because it was difficult, I had to really unravel and face the, things like trying to do it. Oh, now I know how to do it. So now I'm going to try. And then you're in the way. or fear of making a mistake. And then you're in the way. And the beauty of mediumship is that you know that it's not happening when you're the sitter, the person coming for the reading, is either saying, yes, you're on, or no, that's not my loved one. So it's a very, very challenging, I think of it as almost like taking your hands off the wheel and saying, I am going to trust. And
Right.
you can, I often feel the kind of energy coming right through my crown chakra. And just every time you do it, trusting more and more. And I feel like to me, it's not simply about becoming an evidential medium. It's the deepest, most wonderful spiritual practice development of psychic mediumship. It's so amazing. And what I want to give to people is for people who have trouble meditating. Their minds are so busy, they just can't do it. People have conceptions about what meditation is, and it's really not so. And you don't have to spend hours and hours and hours in, in a monastery. It's really about just relaxing into a natural state of mind, alpha brainwave, theta brainwave. We do it all, throughout the day. And as we fall asleep at night, it's available to us. But I feel like I can help people navigate the different attitudes or habits or insecurities, anxieties, uncertainties, the things that come to our mind that fill that space and then block just a more natural receptivity.
Which is a perfect example of how spirit will use whatever your memories, experiences, expertise.
Yeah.
And your expertise in clinical psychology, you're able to pinpoint those blocks for people and help them attain a more receptive state.
Yeah.
And one of the things I've said over and over and over is training yourself to get the hell out of the way and let it come through you, not from you. But I think I was speaking with someone recently who is at a very beginning stage of opening up to there being something more. And there's a level of frustration because they want it now. They want that instant. And there's a subtlety to this work that, yes, all the pieces come together, but it's not as rah-rah, I'm in a parade as people might expect. It's a very subtle shift. But you absolutely made a perfect point of getting to that place where you trust what's coming through and you hand it off to spirit rather than trying to make it come from you, because it doesn't work. That's the block.
Yeah.
So what would be a technique you might use with someone that is, I'm going to pick one out of a hat, that's afraid to open that door, that they're nervous about what might be out there?
I'll just make it to follow up on what you had just said. It's one of the things that frustrates me about being a psychologist and a psychotherapist, because it is a defined thing. And when people come for that work, they're looking for a particular thing. And I really want to get out of the way of that.
Yeah.
And so to do the kind of work that I want to do now is really like, yes, use all of my experience and insights. It's all available, but I'm going to sit back and just let it channel through me to help people. So I'm not going to come up with a system or like anything that's defined. It's going to be very much a live experience. And as I envision, I'm in the process of inviting people to come onto a waiting list to form groups. So I love group process. And this will be something in and of itself that this relatively small group of people will come together and we'll create the space ourselves, which will in and of itself be supportive as people face the stress. So it's a kind of a holding environment. So that's the first step.
And just to interject with that, I've said this many times lately, the need to bring together community who have a shared vocabulary, where you're providing a safe place for people to explore this work or any work. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if we're architects or school teachers or surfers. It doesn't matter. There's a deep, deep need now, an intrinsic need to connect with people who understand who we are so that we can further connect with who we are. Like that's the point to me. Maybe I'm way off base with this, but what's coming through with a lot of my own channeled work is the need to really connect with our own inner knowing and light so that we can build those bonds with a group.
Yeah.
And you're saying the same exact thing. So
And it's
again,
exciting, right?
it is.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
It's so stressful for people. They feel isolated. I think the cornerstone of much in the way of psychological problems is a sense of isolation. And so at a spiritual level, when you're receptive, you know that you're not alone, which is amazing, right. And I think people who do that, in prayer, and there are different ways of approaching that. There's that. And then, yes, exactly what you're saying, that I'm connected to the universe and I'm connected to each individual.
Right.
So, yeah. And there's a metaphor in Zen and maybe elsewhere that we are all the great ocean. We are that itself, and we're individual waves that rise and fall at any given moment. And whether that's in this physical realm or the spirit communicators, so they're always part of some universal mind. And then there also are loved ones that we can recognize.
Yes. So with your work moving forward, and I talked to a lot of people who have they have specific licensure for what they're doing to help people with behaviors or moods or illness, whatever it might be. And it's wonderful and it's needed, but there are also strong parameters around that about how much you have to stay within, you have to color inside the lines.
Yeah.
And I feel like
Who wants to do that, right?
And it feels like you want to, the only way I can describe it is there's an expansiveness with what you, like I can feel this opening up from your heart chakra and your third eye and everything, saying, I want to bring in all of it, not just in those narrow parameters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which gives me willies. It's wonderful.
It's like there's really nothing new under the sun. But I think when these things come in and are lived through our minds and hearts, then that's what I feel like is happening. It's all starting to blend. All the experiences I've had and it's sort of blossoming into this other thing. And it does feel very trusting again of something universal, and also like what people can do together. What can happen in a group? What amazing thing can we, if we create trust and safety and openness? It's just amazing, so we do that in a microcosm, and it's like, let's spread that out.
So you're describing exactly, and you're articulating beautifully what I've been feeling, what so many other people are feeling, that collective energy. So we're plugging into, and I can feel it with what you're saying of you're in that same mindset of, this is our way to come together in humanity. This is our way to really start to look out for each other. And the vision that they give me is, and I've said this many times as well, if we focus on our little circle and we help each other out, that's going to expand and expand. And those circles are going to start to intermesh. And we're going to start to build this global community that is not controlled by the limitations that are being put upon us from, it's not a place of fear or divisiveness or unrest. It's that inner peace that we can find for ourselves, but also share with each other. And it's not Pollyanna. It's really not. It's more.
And you can feel it's happening in a lot of places, particularly since COVID and so much happening online. People coming together and creating this everywhere. And it's a recognition that we are not playing the same game that people in power are doing. Like, it's not about like greed for power and wealth. And it's almost like, what are you even talking about? So it's really affirming for each other that there's really something way better than that.
Samantha and I were speaking with someone yesterday, and we were talking about, we were interviewing this man and he was speaking about how meditation changes your brain chemistry. I've shared some shamanic practices with you
Yes.
that I really love, and that it builds the new neural pathways across your corpus callosum, and really, but what I'm finding right now is because there is such a fluidity with the energies, that the depth of which we're connecting with our own inner knowing and what is coming through from spirit, from other realms, from our ancestors, is so fine-tuned in a way that it never has been before.
Well,
It's almost like they've adjusted the frequency a little bit, and they've really tuned in the radio for us.
and doesn't it feel like I feel like mediumship is, I have never just wanted to kind of do it in the traditional way. And amazing mediums for a couple hundred years now have been demonstrating the persistence of life. And it's like, okay, like I think they want to do more. So
Yeah.
they're going to come to someone like me because I have a psychology background and I can
Correct.
offer something in particular. You know, the woman who started Very Soul is like, she was like a CEO. So she's created a platform instead of becoming right. So I think that there's a real calling for, this can be anything, and we'll use anything that's available to kind of support us, I think. Yeah.
Okay, so I really do think, and I think that we're all being called up to help. If we want to, we signed on the dotted line. We said, okay, big change coming, sign me up. I can almost feel a visceral pull in a new direction with you with this work.
Yeah.
That it's a physical, emotional, spiritual pull towards something more.
And a kind of a readiness. For the past year, I've been wanting to make this shift away from psychotherapy and into something else. And for 2024, I just wasn't quite ready. You know, I was doing a lot of, you know, kind of providing, you know, free readings and things like that. January 2025, it was like, oh, this is a year.
Mm-hmm.
And I just knew it was the year, you know? So, yes, I feel a pull in also, like when the door opens and it's like, okay, let's go. And a year ago, I would not have been personally ready. Like, I don't think I had ripened quite enough, something like that. And then it's like, okay, all systems go, without there being an anxiety, like I don't have to do anything. I just have to keep showing up, you know. And I sent out this email and you responded.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so exciting because it's like you two were the start of this. And yeah, so it kind of comes full circle.
And I'm so glad that Samantha and I got to be part of your journey.
Yeah.
But it also really, really highlights that there's more than enough to go around. Because someone asked me, well, why do you promote other mediums and other intuitives? Doesn't that take away from you? I said, no, it doesn't take away. It gives more people that are doing the work for the right reason.
Sure.
And that's what we need to do. But it also is, you never know the impact you're going to have on someone with what you offer or what you're doing.
Yeah,
and it doesn't have to be about this work, or if you're a writer, or if you're a musician, or if you're a CEO. It has to do with that ripple effect of, you never know that someone is in your path that is going to benefit from what you're offering. You made a really good point a minute ago, Karin, with mediumship is evolving in a new direction. And for years, it has been evidence message. It's been very perfunctory of, we need to prove that there's life after. And now we're bringing in more essence and more personality and more. So do you feel like, with your blend of the psychology and the hypnosis background and your mediumship, that you're kind of making your own modality?
Yeah. So when I do mediumship readings, I call it attuning to spirit, because I'm very motivated for the sitter to have a direct experience of the communication, because people are at different places of being receptive to that. But I'll start with a guided relaxation and kind of like opening up the clairs, opening up the senses and relaxing. And then I invite them to, you know, say anything. So very often someone might say, you know, I thought I wanted to hear from my grandfather, but this friend from high school just popped to mind. Or they'll have a strong feeling or a memory. So I think that their experience of the connection, obviously it's not evidential because they know the person, but it really comes to life. There was one person who, it was a lovely reading. His partner was just dynamic and, easy communicator. And we were right at the end. And I said, do you have a question for him? And the sitter had removed life support, and he wasn't quite sure if he had done the right thing. And I don't know if this happens with you, but before he just started the question, and the spirit communicator already responded. So I was just waiting politely for him to finish it.
Yeah.
And I said, well, your partner said, oh, thank God.
Mm-hmm.
And at that moment, the sitter saw his loved one approach him and say that. And it was like he was just relieved of that. So that's kind of an amazing experience where you're kind of double linking almost. But to allow people to know that they can do this
100%.
in any way. Yeah.
100%. And it goes back to that subtlety cue that their spirit is always trying to get our attention. But when we're in grief, or we're in deep loss, or we're in a sense of guilt or whatever, and if you've ever had to make those types of decisions for someone that you love at end of life,
Yep.
or that you don't feel that you were able to be present enough, or that there was some unrest after they left, it can be really, really hard to get that clarity on your own.
Yep.
So it's almost as if you work as a liaison or a catalyst between the person and spirit. But do you find that you tend to attract a lot of intuitive people that are open to this work more so than stump the psychic types of folks?
It varies. I still do get some people who are just kind of curious and skeptical, but not too many. I know for myself, like I feel really comfortable with dark emotions, complicated grief. It's kind of like bring that on because it's quite rich. And because I'm so used to working with that, I feel very welcoming of anyone who's maybe it was a difficult relationship or any of those feelings. I feel more charged to connect and help them resolve. And the other thing, because I'm a psychologist, I tend to get, I always start with, how did you love this person?
It's beautiful.
So I get the feeling and I get personality and I'll get messages and I'll get just maybe a brief image. I don't get a whole long list because in life, I'm not that interested in what you did for a living and how hard did you try. So I don't come across as that kind of medium, but that's okay. It's kind of like they're going to use what I have to offer.
It sounds more that you do more of a channel and a blend rather than just listing off facts. And I was working with a group the other day and we were talking about some people, and it works beautifully for them. Samantha does this exceptionally well. She'll go through a list in her head asking questions of spirit. That doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
They just kind of, it's as if I'm meeting someone in person.
Yeah.
That I feel their personality or their essence or their movements. It's more, but I enjoy letting them come that close. Whereas some people would prefer, I'll go through my guide, or I want to keep it more of a more, I can't really describe it. Like I have no problem with someone's auric field blending right in with mine from
I feel
spirit.
Like it's a different energies right
yes.
in the body
yes.
most of the time.
Yes.
And then it's quite noteworthy when, like just the other day, I had one and she was way over here. Mm-hmm. And that was telling me something about how she approached, how she was with people in life. And then she came closer when I was acknowledging who she was as an individual. And so all of that is really interesting too. Just like in life, It
is.
Yeah.
It is. And you made a really good point, Karin, about the darker emotions. And I'll often say that people who have training or expertise or personal experience, that they've been through a lot, so they have a higher level of empathy and compassion and understanding. If you've been through a lot of trials or tribulations or loss or grief, or you've worked with folks who have, it gives spirit that much more to work with. And I think that's I'm not saying if you've had an easy life, you wouldn't be a good medium, but I just think that spirit is going to pick out the medium that's going to do the job for them. And they will. So I think that that's an important factor in this.
Pain opens us. It closes us or it opens us. I know. So I think people who say, oh, I want to heal. I want to find a way out of whatever this pain is. And I think that is a person who's probably pretty open to mediumship.
So do you feel that because you are trained as a psychologist and that's been your practice for many years, that I think of one of the greatest things we can do as mediums is to help alleviate grief, is to help people heal. And we're, again, a catalyst. It's not anything that we're doing. We're the hand puppet. We just sit here and we give the message. Do you think that it's equitable to what comes through in a traditional practice for some people to have that relationship with knowing that their loved one in spirit is okay, that it can
help with the grief?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I'm totally understanding your question.
I've had psychologists and counselors and even morticians have recommended you need to go talk to a medium because you've done the personal work, you've done the professional work, but now you need that emotional connection. Yeah. And I was just wondering, as a professional, if you feel that it adds another layer for folks that might have gotten as much as they could out of traditional.
And so it goes back to how, so a lot of psychology can support the ego and functioning, and it's kind of working with parts of the mind that are always online. And I feel like mediumship and then what I was describing earlier, individual, and then also the group work that I'm calling intuitive practices. It's not so much about supporting ego as much as allowing a lot of that to fall away, or, you allow the feelings to come up. So, let's say, people have habitual ways of dealing with frustration, maybe frustration because they feel helpless. And underneath the helplessness is a deep fear. And maybe as a kid, parents weren't around or whatever. So there are these layers, but then we have this fear is at the base of it, but we have this habitual way of getting frustrated and maybe controlling. And grief is different with everyone, but there are probably going to be some habitual things that come up. Although, I think grief actually washes it all away in a way. But going back to so let's say fear is under that. In the work that I want to do, it's the forming the group and then teaching. It's really more of a teaching model of how to regard your mind when you're in doing a mindfulness practice or meditation. What is it that comes up so that you can work with that very skillfully? But then after that, or in combination with that, is looking at our habitual ways of, actually, I'm just afraid. I feel out of control. And so working archetypally and working again with the sort of habitual consciousness, it gets hard. It softens and we are able to approach it. So it's kind of you've got the group, you have the relaxed and receptive state of mind, and then an openness to the habits. And then that kind of opens to release, something else to pass through. That doesn't answer the question about grief.
No.
I feel like grief kind of does that to us.
Right. But
in a shocking way.
But what you're offering is, it ties back to the importance of, this isn't a one and done. This is a process. This is a commitment to yourself to really explore so much more. And one of the things I've been working with a lot lately over the last year or so is ancestral healing and releasing trauma, and the traumas we inherited or the ones that we incurred in this lifetime. And I know it sends the healing back as well as forward, but I feel like we're all attracting people right now that are ready to release the long-term stuff that they've been holding, either in their own physical bodies or even in their genetic.
Yep.
And do you find that as well, that there's
Absolutely.
familial patterns that are being broken in
Yeah, that
this?
comes up a lot in mediumship.
Mm-hmm.
Often a mother might talk about, oh, that went way back.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
And I love that you're saying that, because that's a nuance that's different. I've been a medium for a while, and there's a shift right now energetically in what spirit is providing for us. And maybe it's that our skills are becoming stronger and we're becoming more connected, or we're allowing more to come in. But I also think that they're stepping forward to help us with these changes that are happening on a global level, that there's support for us if we're willing to be open to it.
Yeah. And what you said too about, it reminded me. So like if somebody comes in and they want it to be one and done, how do I fix it? Give me the answer, kind of a thing. That's actually the habitual consciousness that you would start to work with, because that is trying to insert certainty where there's mystery.
Nice.
And the process, yes, is I experienced this with both Zen and mediumship. It's a direct experience. So you don't have to believe anything. We can claim to know something about the mystery, but that's really just it's the way it comes to us. It doesn't make it so. It just is our experience. And we don't need to name it, so that rather than like, who wants a one and done, when you can start to live your life in that process and just directly experiencing what it is that comes, just that direct experience, and it opens, and you're like, I'm so much more energized than I've ever been. It just like passes through me,
Okay, you just made another incredibly important point. Is I'll often say to people, you're going to reach a point where you can't turn back, and it becomes who you are, not what you do.
Yeah.
And so many people think, oh, I need to be able to say, I have a man, he's 6'2", he has blue eyes. And instead it's more, it's tense personal experience. It tends to infiltrate into other aspects of my daily life. It increases my connection with the animal world, with the spirit world, with the nature.
Yeah.
I mean, it's everything, and not that I'm walking around in an airy fairy cloud of glitter and dust.
Yeah.
Yes, it's more grounded and it's more centered, and you're able to pull yourself back to self much more easily than without these. Right.
It's really like, it's me in this life. Here I am. And this is also Zen. It's just your everyday awareness.
Yeah.
It's just me. And that's all you need. And then to be open through as me. So it's not like La La Land. It's really very grounded and real and connected. But you're open to something else passing through. So you're not the author of it. You're not creating everything.
Right. And that's one of the things I love about your energy, Karin, is that you are very grounded. You're very practical. And no disrespect to any airy fairy woo woo out there, but it's not. And I think that brings it allows people who might not be comfortable or familiar with these terms or this world to realize that you don't have to be a certain stereotype to fit the connection with spirit.
Yeah. It's open to everyone.
Right. And it's more of I think, personal opinion, it's a trait that we share as human beings, as a species, is that we all have this ability.
Yep.
And I think that's what's really frustrating sometimes for people is, well, I can't figure it out. I can't turn it on. And that with the subtlety, with the practice, with other things, it might be different for you. But when you start to unlock the way that you're wired, your individual thumbprint, your way of connecting, then it starts to make more sense than if you're just trying to drink the Kool-Aid and do it the way everyone else does.
Yeah. And that reminds me of, I've more recently gotten into and just completely captured by tarot. Mm-hmm. And the way I read is quite psychological, but the suits are the tools that we have, thinking, feeling, sensing, and intuiting. And
Yeah.
a lot of people, that's the wands, and people kind of are like, oh, it's so subtle. I don't quite know what the wands are saying. It's because you have to develop that. You have, but it is an essential tool, just like you just said.
Yeah.
That is part of our human uh, um, life, is to be
Right.
intuitive, to know without knowing how. We just
And,
know it, and
and,
everybody does it.
and again, that connection with the archetypes, which are so prevalent in the tarot, and go back to your Jungian background and your training. So it's just revisiting a learned skill that you already,
Yes.
knowledge, and applying it in a new direction.
Yeah. Jung called them the four functions.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a slightly different, but yeah, there are, see that, well, that's kind of like the synchronicity or
Yeah.
just the parallels. Because another metaphor in Zen is, it's don't mistake the moon for the finger pointing at it. So you have
Mm-hmm.
all these different fingers pointing at the same moon, and they're all fine because they're pointing, but just don't get hooked on a particular finger, because that's not it,
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. I absolutely love that.
I also just want to say something, because I don't want to lose this. It reminded me of something you had said earlier, that one of the most important things that you and Samantha did was say, stick with it.
Yes.
And it was so hard because I felt so bad. I was so bad at it. And other people were so much better than me. And it was like heart wrenching to go to these classes, but I couldn't not at the same time. And then it would get a little easier for a while.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be like, oh, cool. And then your mind would get in the way, and then you're in the barbed wire kind of a experience. But it's for anyone to know, if it's challenging, good.
Yes.
It's so worth it. It's so worth it.
Yes. Oh,
And I think
thank
that we
you.
all
Yeah.
need to encourage each other to be
100%.
like, keep going. Keep going.
Right. And some people may use this in channeling through creativity, or through, how they interact with people in their profession, or how it's not that the skill set isn't just, oh, I want to connect with people in spirit. It truly impacts all aspects of your life.
Yes.
Because you're changing your internal chemistry.
Exactly.
On how you're perceiving and receiving.
Exactly.
And
it's
expressing.
Almost like our mind is the moon, right?
Yes.
It's like when we are just in that, receptive state, it could be a spirit communicator. See, I think the archetypes are the same way. They're independent of us, and then they impact us. But it's because it's our mind that is open to it. I never thought about it that way. It is kind of like we ourselves are the moon, and these things pass through us, and that's kind of the way it naturally can be.
And everything that you're saying is also reminding me of the worst thing we do, and we all do it, is comparing where we are on our path to someone else and where they are on theirs.
Yep.
So I know there are mediums who are much stronger than I am, and some not quite as strong, that if I fall into that trap of comparing what I'm doing with someone else, I almost see that as disrespectful to spirit.
Yeah.
That's not. And I heard this, I was reminded of this again, that for every step forward that we take, spirit will take two. And I think we need to remember that we're not doing this alone. And if we keep showing up and keep making this part of our practice, I think it's a better quality of life.
Yes. And it's also to not reject the life that you've been given, right? Whatever you look like, or whatever your strengths and weaknesses are, the trauma you've had, it's all your particular expression.
Right.
And it's not going to be, you can't possibly measure yourself if you really just appreciate that.
I have absolutely loved speaking with you. How can people find you, Karin?
Yeah, so I named my website receptivemind.me, and I chose .me, not because I'm not really commerce, and I like the .me because it's me is kind of a soulful word. So yeah, receptivemind.me. and you can get information. You can sign up for a newsletter, or I have a Calendly link, and if you want to go ahead, or just shoot me an email, and I'll talk with anyone who'd like more information about it. And then I'm thinking about, could be groups of people who are spiritual seekers, maybe developing their psychic mediumship. Another group might be young adults who are facing challenges that are very different than people my age or older. A women's group. I have worked a lot with older people, and I love working with, I refer to them as elders, because they have a very different perspective that I really respect. And that would be a totally different scene as well. So basically, whoever comes to be on the wait list, I'll talk to them and get a sense of what their questions are, what are they wanting. And then I think that the cohorts will form around that.
See, and I love that, because this is work for everyone. It's not just because you're interested in mediumship or you're interested in it, and there is no age limit, and it's never too late and it's never too early. So I think that the fact that you're opening up those doors to see who spirit brings together, and that's whenever I'm going to teach a class or offer a group or an experience, I always, before I send out the email, I'll say, please bring the people together that will most benefit from each other and from what I have to offer. And I think you're doing the same exact thing. Is I can hold the space for you, and I can hold the direction, but it really is a personal growth and development exercise as well as community.
Yeah. And then it makes it less stressful for the person who's creating the space, right? Because it's like, I'm not trying to control anything here. This is a wide open invitation. And then the excitement that comes in the mystery of it, and the what's going to happen of it, that's all part of the work, I think, too. It's a different way to live, to not be frightened of what we don't know, but to actually be alive. It gives you a kind of a sense of vitality.
It does. And it feels like this is a collaborative effort between you and spirit and who comes to these groups or who comes to you to work with you. So I think that's the key. If you'd like to connect with Karin or get more information about what she has to offer, it's at receptivemind.me. And Karin coming into this with an open mind and an open heart. So thank you so much for joining me here today, Karin. Well, it's been lovely.
I have loved being here. And please do say hello to Samantha.
I will. She's in the middle of her move, so that's why we're doing this today.
I saw her news.
Yes. I can speak for both of us in that it really does bring a sense of humility and deep gratitude to know that we've been able to help other people get on this path. So thank you for it's incredible.
It's delightful to be like, oh yeah, there you are. And I was completely clueless, but it's the very thing we're talking about. Something drew me to, I'll just take that class.
Yeah.
I'll just try that. It's like this part of us that knows where we need to go.
Right.
A lot, we're led very often. So this has been delightful. So thank you.
Thank you. And for those that are listening, remember that you too have something special to offer. Please remember to show up, do good work, and share your light.